it was 2 decades ago. CDC says life expectancy is an important indicator of the country's overall health. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. Alex Dimapon here from Security Title. Title reports, escrow forms, signatures, statements, and title insurance. When it comes to buying, selling, or refinancing your property, we do it all for you. At Security Title, we enjoy watching your dreams come true and being the ones to make sure it happens just as you planned. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite My Christmas Loan with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
There are 26 days left till Christmas. This Christmas countdown is brought to you by the Bougie Booney Dog Salon, located in Tamuning. Easily book your appointment online today to groom your pet dog at the bougieBooneyBooksy.com website or on their WhatsApp at 671-797-4163.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So here we go again, sports fans, on another episode of Tall Tales here on a Wednesday afternoon. We've got 3 whole days of Tall Tales left, I'm proud to say, proud and happy to say. No Jemmy and Cotney today, same old reason, so let's take a peek at the card. Got a really thin card today. People haven't been doing much to each other here in the last couple days. So I'm going to go back to Maneka versus Israel because I just can't let that rest. I've got Hunter versus Congress. I've got Obama versus Biden. And I might review some of the things that we talked about yesterday. But this is a really good time if you ever wanted to call and say, Bob, I always wondered about, and ask about something that's not on the card, I'd welcome it because I've got a really thin card today. Okay, of course, we start out with systemic racism, which I'm happy to say is brought to you by Jeff's Pirates Cove, Epan Telefofo, a great little resort, restaurant, bar, museum, beach, volleyball, basketball, auditorium, you name it. Jeff's got it. Not to mention a real live pirate. Here's a picture of the real live pirate right here. That's Jeff right there. You recognize that handsome, good-looking fellow in the foreground there, the guy with a white mustache and the tailgater T-shirt. And Jeff's holding that wine bottle that I brought back from the States that has his picture on it that looks an awful lot like Jeff. There it is. You can see it right there. Doesn't that look like Jeff? So Jeff said he's going to display it on the back bar. Good reason all by itself to head out to Jeff's on Route 4 in Epan Telefofo. Now, as far as systemic racism is concerned, I talk about it every day, because it's an integral part of the show. You can see that the rice is orange, but people want to call it red rice. And if you don't call it red rice, you run the risk of being canceled.
How dare you?
Paul Zerzan wrote a letter to the editor. The Daily News said, hey, let's stop this nonsense. It's not red, it's orange. The Daily News hit him hard a couple days later in a scathing op-ed and then canceled him. They won't run his stuff anymore. But that doesn't mean that we have to let the narrative control. In fact, that's really kind of what Tall Tales is all about. Taking the narrative, showing you how wrong it is, showing you what the truth and facts really are. And when I have to do that, oftentimes I label the narrative versus the truth as systemic racism. So thank you, Jeff, for that valuable addition to the show. Okay, let's take another look at Maneka here. You know, the war between Israel and Hamas continues. And the more we find out about it, the worse it looks for Hamas. A bunch of bloodthirsty, baby-killing, raping killers. And with the expose of the interview that took place in Qatar, they said, yeah, we did this. We instructed our guys, go over there and be as brutal as you can. Make as big a mess as you can. Because we hope that Israel will overreact, turn the other Muslim countries against them, including the United States. And because we were afraid that peace is going to break out. You know, too many of the Muslim countries are wanting to make settlements with Israel. We don't want this two-state solution. We want a one-state solution, and we want the one state to be called Palestine. Let the Jews go establish their own state in some other location. How about Manhattan? Yeah, so, and it's worked because, you know, that corrupt, evil message has found a home even here on Guam. The local papers ran stories about how we had a local demonstrations here. The so-called Protehi Latexan folks demonstrating in front of the legislature and in front of the governor's office. And we had this quote, this precious quote from Maneka Flores, one of the talking heads for Protehi Latexan. Flores likened the atrocities in Palestine to what the Chamorro people have gone through. Quote, the thing is, we are a colonized people in the Marianas and in the Pacific, and we know very well what it's like to be imprisoned, to be forcefully removed from our lands, to be forced marched, to lose our language, to lose our land to eminent domain for so-called national security, and for us to watch it happening, for the whole world to watch it happening in Palestine right now, and watch how the United States government and other Western governments are basically supporting that horrible ethnic cleansing. We are here to demand more of our leaders. Our leaders cannot take that position, and they need to rise up for the Palestinian people. That's what Maneka's saying. So, you know, what you really have here is just another application of systemic racism and critical race theory, because Maneka wants you to sign up for this. The Chamorros are an oppressed people, and the oppressors are those horrible people from Western civilization, from the United States, bringing, you know, the modernity of the United States, democracy, and all of the American traditions to this island. And you can see what she thinks of it, you know, that the people, Chamorro people were imprisoned. Have Chamorro people ever been imprisoned by the American regime on Guam? Well, yeah, they're called criminals. And would you have it any other way? So this is, this is just beyond belief that a sentient, intelligent person who's had the advantage of a reasonably good Western education can come up with BS like this with a straight face. And that is Maneka, and for the most part, that tells you about everything you need to know about this whole Protehe-Latexan operation and the positions that they take. Okay, next on the card is Obama versus Biden. And this is an article that I just picked up today from, where did I get it? I can't remember. And it says, Democrats are in disarray after Barack Obama handed Joe Biden this brutal rejection. Now, there's a lot of talk that that Biden is the figurehead president. But what we're really seeing is Obama's third term. Because Obama's the puppeteer, the man, the power behind the throne, the man behind the scene, the little guy over there behind the curtain causing all of the sound effects on the screen in front of you, playing Joe Biden like a cheap violin. These are the suspicions. And I have to say there's certain credibility to it, because if left to its own devices, Joe Biden would just be a tottering old fool if he didn't have somebody to put some content into his brain housing group. and even Obama couldn't put much there. But it's not a complete vacuum, pretty close. And here's how the article reads. Barack Obama and Joe Biden were supposed to be friends and political allies. Their relationship took a surprising twist. Now Democrats are in disarray after Barack Obama handed Joe Biden this brutal rejection. Tensions are rising in the Democrat Party over the political future of President Joe Obama. Let me just stop here and kind of bring you up to date where we are. I think if you could take a poll, the majority of the Democrat leadership wishes, hopes that they could be unhitched from Joe Biden because he's not a viable candidate. My own prediction is this. If Biden lives long enough to be the Democrat nominee for the next election, any Republican could beat him. Right on down to, and what's the guy from North Dakota, Bugram or something like that? Yeah, even he could beat Obama. Any Republican beat him with only one catch-22, and that is that if the Republicans give the nomination to somebody other than Trump, Trump has the ability and the proclivity to pull a Samson. And since he can't control the temple, he might tear the whole temple down with him. Pull it down, in other words, destroy the Republican Party's chances just out of pique or spite as possible, allowing Biden to win by default. I don't think that's going to happen because I think that it's a very good chance that Trump is going to get the Republican nomination. But I got to say this. Republicans have to stop talking about the polls. Back in 2008, I went back to Cleveland, Ohio, and worked a couple of months as a volunteer in John McCain's campaign. And I got exposed to some things that you ordinarily see. Excuse me. One time, Linda Lingle, the governor of Hawaii, came to town. And she gave a little speech for some of the Republican functionaries in Cleveland, Ohio, and Akron, Ohio. And I went. And she laid something out that's really kind of basic. And she said, you win elections by getting more votes than the other candidate, not by getting crowds to rallies, not by putting on a lot of shows and things like that. You got to get out and get more votes than the other side. And, of course, I would apply the Linda Lingle rule to Donald Trump right now. You don't win elections by doing well in the polls. You win elections by doing well at the polls, different kind of polls. And you'll recall going into the elections last year, how Republicans were counting the eggs before they ever hatched. Boy, there's going to be a red wave coming in. We're going to get control of both houses. We're going to take over a lot of state houses. And we didn't. We lost. Remember, we lost the Senate. We just barely hung on to the House. And we lost some state houses. We lost the governorship in Wisconsin, which is, kind of trending towards red. So you can't pay that much attention to polls. You got to get out and get the votes. So as far as Biden is concerned, Democrats, I think, are afraid that Biden can't beat Trump. One, Biden is old. He's damn near as old as I am, for crying out loud. And believe it or not, well, of course, I'm pretty proud of my humility. I don't think Joe Biden, I think I could do his job, but I don't think he could do mine. I don't think he could sit here in front of a microphone and make sense for 2 hours. I don't think he could interpret the day's events like I do. I don't think he would have the kind of sense of humor that makes what would ordinarily be an educational undertaking fun and humorous. He can't be anything. If he were an actor, the only part he could play would be Joe Biden.
He does it very well.
And he does it very well.
You know what? I'm really tickled that the media keeps doing these polls on, is Joe Biden too old? Mm-hmm. And the question isn't old, because old to me is the same thing as saying race or gender when it comes to identity politics.
Yeah.
The issue is cognitive skills and motor skills.
Yeah.
Because if you put you up with him, and you're older, aren't you?
I'm 84. He's only 80.
See, there you go. And it's a prime example of it's not about age. It's about his abilities and disabilities.
Well, I took a long trip last year, got on 4 planes altogether, and I didn't fall once.
That's why you're not a Christmas tree in front of the White House.
Yeah, so Biden's too old. Biden is gaffe prone. He can hardly open his mouth without saying something stupid or embarrassing. He has a horrible track record as president. He's hypocritical. He is saying things now that are absolutely contrary to what he said before, but rather than setting the record straight, he tries to lie about his record. It's not truthful at all.
He has a history of that too, which is amazing that he was elected.
Yeah,
even became a vice president.
No, I don't categorize him as a pathological liar. I categorize him as I can't use the full term on the show, as a BSer. And there's a difference between a liar and a BSer. Because a liar wants to tell you something that's not true with the understanding that if he does it right, you'll believe him. Joe Biden BSes not because he thinks you'll believe him. He knows you won't. But he thinks you're going to like him because he's a BSer. He's like that guy down at the end of the bar, who was in the Army, but he wasn't just regular infantry. He was a paratrooper, special forces, a sniper, and guarded the President of the United States. Well, yeah, he was in the Army, right? And everybody kind of likes, everybody sits around and kind of has that expression on their face, and they see him as entertaining because he's such a BSer.
There goes Joe again.
Yeah, another one of Joe's stories, like how his son was killed in Afghanistan. His son can't even spell Afghanistan. And that's Joe. Joe is a classic BSer. No, that work, Joe could get a job tending bar probably at the Nickel Plate Hotel, because that would go over pretty well for a bartender. But he was a classic case of being in the right place at the right time for the last election. What the Democrats were looking for was somebody who could beat Trump. And they thought the way we beat Trump is we'll go with somebody who is not colorful, not volatile, a traditional old-timer, nice guy who's not going to piss anybody off. As much as I like Trump's politics, I'm sometimes his most severe critic. When he was running for the Republican nomination, I was really angry at him because at the time of the Republican campaign time, debates, etc., I thought we had like a dozen people who could beat Hillary Clinton. Now, you got to give it to Hillary. She's glib. She's articulate. She's not stupid. She's evil, but she's not stupid. She's dishonest, but she's not stupid. So it can't be any Tom, Dick, or Harry that can beat her, but I thought we had plenty of solid candidates who could beat her. But because of Trump and his Trumpisms, I thought he's the only one she can beat, because she'll be able to flip all of the silly stuff that he says and use it against him. And boy, was I wrong. She not only beat him, but he not only beat her, but took her to the clinics. Remember, she had her inaugural party scheduled for a place in New York that had a glass ceiling. Remember the symbolism of it? She had all of the eggs counted before the chicken started to cackle, and he beat her bad. So the idea was that Joe would be this low-pressure, non-controversial guy. Because of the pandemic, he didn't even need to be very public. He could hide in his basement, etc. And this would do it. But it was wrong.
Interesting. The Democrats decided to pick someone vanilla.
Say again?
They decided to pick someone vanilla. With all their hemming and hawing about diversity,
yeah,
they picked vanilla.
Exactly. The least flavor of all. No, I'm not satisfied that the 2020 election was honest. And it's unfortunate that the likes of Mike Lindell and some of these other folks have circulated just really wild theories as to why the election was fixed. And of course, they have much more pizzazz than my theory as to what should be looked at. And my theory is this: the Constitution says the rules for election shall be prescribed by the Congress. And if you hold an election other than by the rules prescribed by Congress, it ain't an election. And because of the pandemic, a lot of the state laws were ignored. Election commissioners, various boards and commissions, et cetera, got in and said, we're going to count the votes even if they're 10 days late instead of a week late. We're going to allow ballot. We're going to allow all of these other things that state law doesn't allow. So my analysis is this: if you conduct an election not in accordance with state law, it doesn't go by the usual rules of election challenge. And the usual rules of election challenge are this: unless you can make a colorable argument that if your position prevailed, your candidate would get more votes than the other candidate, your case is going to be dismissed. It's going to be demurrable. So you can't say, we went back and we found out that my candidate lost by 100 votes, but we went back and hand counted the votes, and he actually won. He actually only lost by 75 votes. So we're challenging the election. You're going to get bounced out of court because there's nothing for the court to decide.
What's going to make 2024 interesting is a lot of arguments were not talking about court cases, but in the public opinion, a lot of arguments about voter fraud in the 2020 election was based on a very strong narrative by the media, and it's amazing to me how there are quite a number of cases of voter fraud that are actually being tried in courts that are at the beginning made quiet, like what happened up in Connecticut, down in Georgia. Also, they're looking at a lot of places that were like, oh yeah, there's fraud going on. And what's amazing is it's Democrat versus Democrat who are filing these cases because they didn't win and they found fraud. Well, it's amazing how a lot of these conspiracy theories we were accused of are becoming kind of true.
True. So that's my theory. And if an election is not conducted according to the rules, it's not who got the most votes. It's that the election didn't count. It was a nullity. And I've read that if you looked at like 4 of the battleground states that did exactly what I'm talking about too, there are only 50,000 votes separated Biden and Trump. So if those were pulled out of there, Trump would have won. So if you don't follow the rules, the law established by the state legislature, it's like contracting with the Teamsters or the bowling team or somebody else to count the election. It's interesting, but it doesn't count.
Just a small tangent about this, what we're discussing right now.
Yeah.
This is exactly what's going to get YouTube to censor this video. So you guys are going to be hearing this for the first and last time for this episode, because I guarantee you YouTube is going to flag this video because they've done it before. We even dared to mention a discussion about 2020 elections.
I mean, our show.
Oh yeah, I'm watching the red flags when they come up, and I think there's already been 2 shows that they've deemed was disinformation for merely discussing it.
I see. Yeah. So
that should scare a lot of people.
Yeah. So, you start out with the secret ballot. We didn't have the secret ballot until about the turn of the last century. Secret ballot is also called the Australian ballot because the Aussies invented it. And when American lawmakers saw it, they thought this would be the way to put the boss tweeds of the world out of business. Let's take a short break and we'll come back to Boss Tweed.
Hi, this is Jerry Roberts. What's happening in the workplace? What about your job and career? What ideas will find their way into your world? That's what you get with the Extra Point every day on The Ray Gibson Show here on 93.3 FM. Sometimes it's about what's in the news, or working relationships, or how to get further and do better. I try to make it interesting, inspiring, and hopefully sneak a little fun in too. Be a part of it. 7:25 weekday mornings. The Extra Point. Brought to you by First Hawaiian Bank.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
And now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, I've got R. James on the line right now, and I'm going to break here because I've got a lot to say about Obama versus Biden. R. James wants to make a quick comment on the protesters at the ITC intersection right now. You're the man on the spot, R. James.
Yeah, I just came past there, and there's a group of people, although I'll bet it's a small group of people, you know, and that's fine. Everybody can do what they want. I protested some things. I protested against, you know, COVID and all that stuff. It's a hot afternoon. If that's what they want to do with their afternoon, that's fine. But I'd like to point out something that everybody needs to think about. And it's true. So it's not an opinion, okay? Islam is not bad, okay? I lived, worked, and operated with the Kurds in the north. They're pretty level-headed. They don't even like radical Islam and got along with them great. And they were like, hey, okay, you're Christian, you know, well, all right, whatever. Just, you know, you guys leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. Oh, you're here to help us? Okay, that's fine. Okay. Latehi protection needs to understand, and I'm going to set up a scenario just real quick here. Let's just say that everybody just pulled back and said, okay, look, Hamas, you guys want to take out Israel, you guys want to kill every Jew on the planet. Okay, go ahead. We don't care. Whatever. Do whatever you want to do. Okay. After they have killed every Jewish person, every Israeli person on the planet, they're going to come after everybody else. Because if you don't pray to their version of the Quran, if you don't submit, and I do mean submit, to Sharia law, if you don't point your carpet the same direction that they point their carpet and pray the same time of day that they pray every day, you don't deserve to breathe the same air that they breathe. They'll come after Christian. Ask a radical Islam member what they think about Catholics. Okay? They don't care what religion you are. They don't even care if you're an atheist. If you're an atheist and you don't believe in any religion, they're going to come after you because you won't convert to radical Islam. You know, these people need to get their heads screwed on straight, and they need to look at the facts instead of the rhetoric. Because if there was no Jews to go after on the planet, then they're going to start coming after everybody else.
Tell us more about this demonstration
even
at the...
even if you're not a religious person, they'll come after you because...
R. James?
Believe in them. Yeah.
Tell us more about the demonstration at the ITC. What do the signs say, et cetera?
They're waving Palestinian flags, and they got banners up on the right there at the edge of the mayor's complex, right there at the corner. They got banners up that say "Freedom for Palestine," and I don't know. It looks like there's like maybe 12 or 15 of them out there, you know. And they're waving flags and banners and little mini flags, and you know, it looks like, you know. Looks like voting time. You know, they're trying to get attention,
and they will. You know, the papers and TV will pander to them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Feel good politics at its best.
Yeah.
So it's good that they're anti-Hamas then, because Hamas should free Palestine.
Yeah. No, there's no problem with the Palestinian people. It's the radical Hamas and Hezbollah Islam that's as usual takes control and becomes the tyrants.
But here's a sobering fact, though, James, and I guess I have to say this because this affected the Catholic Church here on Guam. We have a lot of great Catholics and good Catholics here on this island, and there are some bad ones that happened that allowed the molestation of boys and other individuals to happen for many decades here. Those good Catholics, the majority of the Catholics, were irrelevant because they remained silent. And it's the same thing with the good Islamic people, and it's also the same thing with the good Palestinians. As long as they remain silent, I don't care if it's the majority, they're irrelevant.
Or elect Hamas to run the Gaza Strip.
Well, I believe there was a saying that was going around when we were over in the box. It was like, hey, you're not ever going to be free if you don't ever want to do something to be free. So, I mean, you can't just stand back on the sidelines and in the shadows and expect that it's going to go away, because the radicals and the tyrants and the wannabe tyrants, man, that's what they prey on, is when everybody just hides in the shadows and doesn't do anything.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for being our on-the-spot reporter there, R. James. Thanks for calling in.
Have a good one, Bob.
Yeah, so I always come back to this one. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing. Edmund Burke. Yeah. And we really saw that phenomenon here. And electing Hamas to run the Gaza Strip is worse than doing nothing. Doing something positive that's dead wrong. Okay, back to Joe Biden. Probably the majority of the Democrat leadership is scared that he's not going to be able to handle it, and that Trump's base and Biden's fumbles, if you add them up, wind up being a victory for Trump. And, of course, there's the polls. But the Democrats would have an extremely difficult time replacing Biden with anybody else. First of all, they've got an extremely weak bench. There isn't anybody of national character that would be any better than Biden, frankly, unless you wanted to bring in Gavin Newsom from California, who probably could be the president of any socialist country, but probably not the United States. He'd have to undergo a serious re-education campaign. And then the Democrats are also stuck with Kamala Harris. You know, it's a classic case of once you climb on the tiger's back, the only hope that you can have is that the tiger will eat you last. So there's no way that they could get rid of Kamala Harris, because they would lose the female black vote, which is an important part of their base. Advancing Kamala to the top of the ticket would put them in a worse position than Biden, because her favorability is even less than Biden. So if the Republicans try to win the election, they've got a really good chance of doing it. Now, going back to this article here, whether or not Biden is really Obama's third term, Obama still has a lot of political mileage. And having Obama strongly behind you could be a real asset. It could make up for some of Biden's faults. But going on with the article, the party is divided over whether the 81-year-old president should be allowed to seek a second term. Those questioning Biden's prospects could now include his former boss at the White House. Former President Barack Obama hosted a forum on democracy at the Obama Foundation to mark the 15th anniversary of his 2008 election victory. 15 years? Has it been that long?
Still hurts today.
The Washington Post reported that tensions were evident. This is the WAPO. This is not the Washington Examiner or the Wall Street Journal. This is the Washington Post. If you can't find a copy of the Washington Post, look in Biden or Obama's pocket, because that's where they hide out. Some of the attendees wondered why President Biden didn't receive more support from Obama at the forum. The takeaway of the weekend was not, quote, "Hey, team, we got to get the band back together to help Biden out." It was this: if this is a supposedly existential threat and democracy is so challenged, then why aren't you being more overt about it? That's what the Post said, the New York Post. Obama briefly mentioned Biden during his speech at the event and didn't mention his former running mate during an appearance on the Pod Save America podcast the same day. Now, you'd have thought he'd have said, and my good friend Joe Biden, who was my rock when no. And then there was, what's his name, Joe something over here. Yeah. The former president passed up an easy opportunity to boost Biden's campaign. At the Chicago Forum, multiple attendees also noted the pointed absence of any meaningful cheerleading for Biden, who has served 8 years as Obama's vice president. The WAPO reported several attendees said the tensions were evident. Even the Washington Post took the blinders off to report on this. Democrats are jittery over a string of bad polls for Biden that show his support slipping away ahead of the 2024 election. President Biden is facing growing questions about his age after he fell behind former President Trump in numerous recent polls. That's not all that he fell behind.
Oh, they're talking about the polls. Not again.
Yeah, you got to be careful how you use the phrase fall behind when you're talking about Joe Biden. Obama's cold shoulder at the forum comes on the heels of one of the most influential people in his two presidential campaigns publicly calling out Biden. David Axelrod, who served as Obama's chief strategist, questioned whether Biden should run for election after a devastating New York Times poll. Axelrod's a really sharp cookie. No getting around it. And he was a genius behind Obama's campaign. I don't think Obama could have won without him.
Well, there are also great handlers on his team also.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Obama could have done anything by himself.
Right. Axelrod told the New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd that he didn't care about the insult, the Obama insult. I hope they don't think the polls are wrong, because they're not, Axelrod warned. He became the rare Democrat to speak bluntly about Biden's chances in public without being yet another, quote, anonymous source for their media allies. I think he has a 50-50 shot here, but no better than that, maybe a little worse, Axelrod added. He thinks he can cheat nature here, and it's really risky. They've got a real problem if they're counting on Trump to win it for them. I remember Hillary doing that too. Hillary thought Trump would win it for her. Biden needs a unified Democrat Party standing behind him to win 2024. Barack Obama and his camp are turning on the increasingly unpopular president at the worst possible time. Now, of course, that prompts me to once again surface this theory. Is Obama trying to clear the way for another nominee?
This is how we'll know. He invites Biden to go paddleboarding with him at this vineyard.
Yeah. So imagine this scenario. Primary elections. And a couple of strong challengers come on. They don't take Biden out of the picture. But you go to the Democrat convention, and Biden takes the mic and says, I appreciate the opportunity to have been your president for 4 years. I'm gratified that I have the nomination again, but I must step aside for the good of my party and the good of the country. And I want to introduce you to the person that I want you to nominate by acclamation. Michelle, could you come up here, please?
Yeah.
She'd pass muster with every single Democrat. Probably even get some female crossover votes. She could play the race card. She could play the identity politics, etc.
So many good jokes in this one, but I'm going to refrain.
Yeah. And scrape the paint and varnish off it, she'd be worse than her husband was. But she could win. And it's very possible that Biden can't win. Now, I read a biography of Harry Truman written by David McAuliffe, who's right up there. He's not Robert Caro, but he's good. And he went through the whole nomination of FDR for his fourth term. And they settled on Truman for one really good reason. One thing Truman had going for him was that he wasn't Henry Wallace. Henry Wallace was too far to the left. The Republicans painted him as a commie, as a leftist, etc. And he was, for the time, he was far to the left. And no one accused Truman of being on the left side. As a matter of fact, Truman was a classic machine politician. The Tom Pendergast machine in Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas City, Kansas, was the one that made Harry Truman into what he was. He had an obscure position as a county commissioner in Kansas City. And the Republicans had a vacant, the Democrats had a vacant seat in Missouri, and they didn't have a really good candidate to put in there, so they decided, let's put that guy Truman in there. Truman was the token honest man in the Pendergast administration. He was honest, and he was advanced as their honest man, right? After he was elected, folks like Drew Pearson referred to Harry Truman as the senator from Pendergast, not the senator from Missouri. And he was loyal to Tom Pendergast right down to the end. When Pendergast died, Truman went to his funeral. This is the kind of guy Harry Truman was, right? But at the time, the Republicans were looking at Roosevelt's fourth term. They knew he would not last to the end of the term. They knew for sure that whoever they put in as vice president was going to be the president of the United States. And they put Truman in, not because he was so good, but because he wasn't so bad. He had made his bones during World War II. He had an oversight committee, and he investigated overspending and corruption in defense spending. It was called the Truman Committee, and he made a name for himself. But he was a little leery about running for president because during the time he was a senator, guess who worked for him? Bess Truman was on his staff. Truman wasn't a rich man, and he was afraid. He wasn't afraid for himself, for Bess. He didn't want people throwing mud at Bess. Okay, let's head for.
Just one more.
Let's take a short break here.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Hafa-day, Alex Dimapon here from Security Title. Title reports, escrow forms, signatures, statements, and title insurance. When it comes to buying, selling, or refinancing your property, we do it all for you. At Security Title, we enjoy watching your dreams come true and being the ones to make sure it happens just as you planned. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Okay, so I picked at Facebook, and Harvey tells us that Ronald Reagan was 69 in 1980.
His first term.
But, excuse me, Ronald held his age really well. I just saw a video of Ronald the other night, and of course he was a movie star, and even into his late age, he had movie star good looks. And it's not fair. The Democrats will figure out some way to compensate for this, but good-looking people have an advantage in politics. There's just no getting around it. You compare Kennedy and Nixon, and everybody's heard the story. If you listen to the debates on the radio, the 1960 debates, you'd have thought Nixon won. Nixon was a smart cookie, no getting around it. If you watched it on TV, you would have thought Kennedy won. Kennedy was better looking, presented a much better image on TV than Nixon. So Reagan was a good-looking guy. I've told this joke before, but I'm going to do it again. There was a little back talk about, Ronald still got a good head of hair. I wonder if he dyes his hair. And Gerald Ford picked that up, and they said, people are talking about whether or not Ronald Reagan dyes his hair. I don't think he dyes his hair. He's just prematurely orange. But I've been there. I've been 69 years old. Or as the French would say, if you count in French, it goes 66, 67, 68, vive la France, 70. For all you French speakers out there. I was there myself once, and the difference between 69 and 79, pretty pronounced. I figured when I was 69, well, I'm not ready to confess old age just yet, but every year costs you a little bit, especially once you get past your mid-70s. I figure a person's really at his prime in his 50s because you still got a lot of physical and mental strength, but by the time you hit your mid-50s, a little wisdom has creeped in there somewhere too. You're not anywhere near as impulsive as you might have been in your 30s or even early 40s. But anyhow, Biden is an old man, and he acts like an old man, and he talks like an old man, and he obviously thinks like an old man, and everybody knows that, breaking my own rule here, Jose.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows. And when we're looking for leaders, we're looking for youth, vigor, vitality, quickness, and not most of the things that come with old age. Wisdom does come with old age, but in Biden's case, I don't think he's ever had the capability of embracing wisdom. He's always been, I'm going to use another one I've used before, he's kind of like William Jennings Bryan, who ran for president against McKinley. He was the populist Democrat. He was the boy orator of the Platte River in Nebraska, William Jennings Bryan. And one of his critics said, well named, the boy orator of the Platte, because he's just like the Platte River, a mile wide and an inch deep at the mouth. And the Platte River is one of those western rivers, that half the year it isn't even there. But when it is, it really spreads out.
Biden to a T.
So that's Biden. Biden's the wise guy at the end of the bar. They might have a quick punchline, but that's it. Once you get him past his punchline, he can't even lay the foundation for the joke. All right, let's break for the big halftime show here.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
A fifth hostage for prisoners swap. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News, on what could be the penultimate day of the ceasefire.
9 Israeli women and a 17-year-old girl in exchange for 30 Palestinian prisoners. They're coming back. 2 foreign workers also released from Gaza.
Fox's Nate Foy, who reports explosions in northern Gaza led to a gunfight between suspected Hamas militants and Israeli soldiers that threatened the latest exchange. One more group of hostages is scheduled to be released Wednesday before the ceasefire is set to expire. A U.S. military Osprey aircraft has crashed into the ocean near Japan's Yakushima Island. There were 8 crew members on board the Osprey when it went down. No word yet on their status, according to Japan's Coast Guard. President Biden, Vice President Harris, and all 5 living former First Ladies attended a memorial service for Rosalind Carter Tuesday at Emory University in Atlanta, where she was eulogized by son James.
My mother was the glue that held our family together through the ups and downs and thicks and thins of our family's politics. As individuals, she believed in us and took care of us.
Former President Jimmy Carter also attended. Now 99, he's been in home hospice care for months. Mrs. Carter will be buried in her Georgia hometown Wednesday after a private funeral. The House has begun debate on a resolution to expel New York Congressman George Santos. He argued on the House floor Tuesday he's being denied due process.
The process in which the Ethics Committee engaged was incomplete, irresponsible, and littered with hyperbole and littered with biased opinions.
An ethics committee investigation found that Santos had misdirected campaign funds for personal use. A vote this week could make him only the 6th member of the House ever to be expelled by his colleagues. America is listening to Fox News.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite My Christmas Loan with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Hunter Biden's attorney says the president's son is willing to comply with a congressional subpoena, but with a condition.
His attorney, Abby Lowell, sent a letter to House Oversight Chairman James Comer, taking him up on Comer's offer to have Hunter Biden come before the committee. Republicans wanted this to be behind closed doors. Hunter Biden said, no, I want to do this in public. I want this to be on camera for everyone to see. Lowell writing, quote, we have seen you used closed-door sessions to manipulate, even distort the facts and misinform the public. We therefore propose opening the door. He says a public proceeding would prevent selective leaks, manipulated transcripts, doctored exhibits, or one-sided press statements.
Fox and David Spont, committee chair James Comer says they will afford Biden a public hearing, but only after he sits for a closed-door deposition. American consumers are feeling slightly more confident this month as the holiday shopping season kicks into high gear. The business research group The Conference Board says its consumer confidence index rose to 102 in November. That was up nearly 3 points from October. A Florida state official was dead or dying for 20 minutes in a hallway at the governor's office complex last year before anyone noticed.
That's the finding of a report by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. 74-year-old Peter Antonacci was appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis to serve as the director of the Office of Election crime and security. 2 months into the job, Antonacci attended a meeting at the Capitol. He left early and the meeting room door closed behind him. More than 20 minutes later, FDLE Commissioner Mark Glass stepped into the hallway and found Antonacci's body. Glass began chest compressions and used an automatic defibrillator, but failed to revive him. DeSantis spokesman says the governor was not at the meeting. The Associated Press reports Antonacci had a long history of heart disease and surgery. Lisa Lacera, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
The Nissan Ninja is back, and he's slashing prices on our entire certified pre-owned inventory. But how low will he go? 20%? 30%? No, he's slashing up to 40%.
Nani?
All makes and models available. Sports cars? Slashed. Luxury cars? Slashed. Trucks? Slashed. Crossovers and SUVs? Slashed. Get to Nissan Guam before this Ninja disappears. Fees not included. See dealer for details.
Half a day. Alex Dimapon here from Security Title. Title reports, escrow forms, signatures, statements, and title insurance. When it comes to buying, selling, or refinancing your property, we do it all for you. At Security Title, we enjoy watching your dreams come true and being the ones to make sure it happens just as you planned. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
The holidays are here again, and American WaterTech wishes you and your loved ones a joyful holiday season. Our popular holiday special is back, and for a limited time only, we are offering the whole house system of a Connecticut non-electric water softener and a reverse osmosis water drinking system for the incredible discounted price of only $2,995, inclusive of basic installation and 1-year limited warranty. Hurry, this sale is on until December 29th while supplies last. See store for details or call us at 671-649-2301.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
This just in, there are 26 days left till Christmas. This Christmas countdown is brought to you by the Bougie Booney Dog Salon located in Tamuning. Easily book your dog grooming appointment online today at the bougiebooney.booksy.com website or message them on their WhatsApp number at 671-797-4163.
Okay. So here we go, second half of Tall Tales here. You just saw the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery. A lot of really nice-looking folks there. In fact, they're all really nice-looking. You know how I know that, Jose?
How do you know that, Bob?
They're tailgaters.
Oh, yeah.
They have extremely high standards here.
They all qualify.
So I want to wrap up a couple of themes here that I got into before I let our on-the-spot reporter, R. James, report from the ITC intersection. Back to Harry Truman. Harry Truman was the last time that in my lifetime, and probably yours, that you'll ever see Joe Sixpack elected to the presidency. Harry Truman was just an ordinary guy. He was in business a couple times. He failed in business. He was, as I mentioned, Joe, as were Tom Pendergrass, token honest man, a political hack in his own way. Got to be president. When he left the presidency after his first full term, his approval rating was the lowest in the history of presidents. It was 25%. Because he did some pretty unpopular things, like firing General MacArthur, one of the heroes of World War II. That took some guts. But I look back on those days, and I still have a pretty good memory of exactly what happened, what didn't happen, what MacArthur did. And MacArthur, MacArthur's whole career was based on disobeying orders. When the bonus army after World War I, Congress passed a law that said that veterans of World War I would be paid a bonus like 30 years after the end of the war. And during the Depression, the veterans were saying, hey, we need our bonus now. Don't make us wait. So during the administration of Hoover, MacArthur was chief of staff of the Army. Now, it doesn't sound like it, but in the Army, the chief of staff is the highest officer, a 4-star general. And Taft told MacArthur, clear the bonus marchers out of Washington. They'd set up a camp on Anacostia Flats, and they were demonstrating and, doing everything they could to bring attention to themselves. He said, but I want you to be gentle with them. I want them out of there, but I don't want any force, violence, anything like that. By the time it was over, MacArthur burned them out. He disobeyed President Hoover. The story is that Hoover summoned to the White House, and MacArthur threw up on the steps of the White House because he knew he'd really done something bad. During the Korean War, he was advising the military leadership. You remember, he was in charge of UN forces in Korea. And he was advising military leadership, we should cross the Yalu. We should bomb the other side of the Yalu. We should use the atomic bomb on the other side of the Yalu. Put the Chinese out of business now before they get too strong. He advised Truman of that. Truman said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to start World War III. And you are chain of command here. I don't want to hear any more of that. And MacArthur was writing to congressmen saying the same thing, etc. Clearly being insubordinate. And very, very popular after the landing at Incheon, which was a super gamble, but paid off for MacArthur because the United States was pushed back into the Pusan perimeter, which was down in the southeast corner of the Korean Peninsula, and almost got pushed into the sea. Almost the same thing that happened to the French the Brits at Dunkirk. So what MacArthur did was he sent Marines, First Marine Division, from the West Coast and picked up some of the folks from the Pusan perimeter, sent them around the Korean peninsula, made a landing at the harbor at Incheon, which is a river. It has the highest tidal fluctuation of any place, just about any place in the world, like 36 feet per day. And of course, the North Koreans never expected that there'd be a landing with some place with such a high tidal variation. But it was tremendously successful. MacArthur was able to cut through the Korean peninsula, maroon some North Koreans south of the battle, advanced almost all the way to the Yalu River, and was hailed as a national hero. Now, of course, when we got up close to the Yalu River, you had what the Chinese labeled as Chinese volunteers, Chinese soldiers, who would come out and stand on the high ground and visibly show MacArthur, hey, look, hey, Doug, here we are, right? Not take any offensive action, but just showing that they were in Korea. Would have been a really good signal to MacArthur to back up, because, of course, China didn't want to have the United States on their border on the Yalu River. But MacArthur, instead of doing that, MacArthur wanted to bomb and attack and move forward. And it turned into a disaster that the Marines called Frozen at the Chosen. One of the best quotes that ever came out of a Marine Corps officer, Colonel Chesty Puller, who was in charge of, I can't remember if it was the 1st or the 7th Marines. And he was informed by a member of his staff, and I want to sit rep, a member of his staff said, General, the Chinese have surrounded us. And Puller said, good. That means we can hit the SOBs no matter which direction we fire. And somebody else whose name I forgot, when faced with the word retreat, said, we're not retreating, we're just advancing in another direction. They shouldn't have been able to retreat because they had to retreat down this narrow valley. The Chinese had the high ground, so it was a fighting retreat. They took some casualties and they made it. But this didn't stick to MacArthur like the Incheon landing did. But given someone with MacArthur's ego, temperament, ambition, had Truman not clipped his wings then, where would we be now? I remember the ultra-right at that time was advancing MacArthur for president. MacArthur thought that he was so popular that he didn't even need to throw his hat in the ring, that people would see he was the best, and that he would have been nominated to run against Ike in 1960. Didn't happen. Now I want to go back to the secret ballot, the Australian ballot. Before we had the Australian ballot, people would come to the polls and they would tell the man at the polls who they wanted to vote for, and he'd mark them off. This was a tremendous advantage for the machine politicians like Boss Tweed. Harvey put his first name on the Facebook. And it was, one of the reasons that the Irish became so prominent in the police and fire departments in New York, because the Irish were the only immigrants that came en masse to the United States at the turn of the century who could speak English. So they were great political functionaries. So the deal was, you back the machine politicians and we'll get you a job in the government, police, fire, whatever. But reformers said, we got to stop doing this. We got to use the Australian ballot. That is, you go to the polls, you're given a ballot, nobody sees how you vote, ever. And this was a tremendous reform because it allowed for honest elections. And to me, it's the only way, or it's the best shot at honest elections. Now, the Democrats want to have vote harvesting. They want to have these drop boxes, all of these other things. Anybody can vote absentee, early voting, et cetera, et cetera. And the farther you get away from the Australian ballot, from the secret ballot on election day, the easier it is to throw the election, the greater the opportunities.
Well, look at the primaries and caucusing.
I think there's a substantial chance that happened, especially if you see Dinesh D'Souza's video called 2,000 Mules. So the Republicans call it voter integrity. The Democrats call it voter suppression, because the Democrats can't cheat as easily with that. So I think a lot of these issues are going to come up. Now, one other thing about, the judicial system and election challenges, our judiciary is not very well equipped to handle an election challenge. If you think that there's going to be corruption in the election and you bring suit, you may have your complaint dismissed because it's not ripe. You haven't been hurt yet. But until you wait until the damage occurs, court might very well dismiss your suit because it's moot. It's over. And courts kind of go like this. Okay, you guys, you're in here challenging the election results. You waited until after the election was over, and when you lost, you challenged. We see what's going on here. Get out of here. There's not enough time for proper discovery. There's not enough time to really develop cases. So election challenges have to go on TROs, preliminary injunctions, basically affidavits and things like that. And there isn't time to develop substantial proofs, especially about the kind of stuff I'm talking about here, matters of law. So it's no wonder that now cases are starting to bob up, because it takes a long time for an election case to filter through the courts. And I think this is going to be a substantial issue in the election. Now, I just hope that Republicans have Trump's ear. That's a biggie. Tell him, Donald, you don't do this. We do it. The Republican Party goes into voter fraud and all that stuff. We don't want you talking about the election being stolen in 2020. That's not a winning issue for you. You've got to look at 2024. If that happens, I think there's a real good chance that Trump can win. And I can understand why the Democrats really want to dump Biden. Biden. Freudian slip, Jose.
Oh,
Okay, a little early to go to Wrigley Field, I guess, huh? Let's go to Wrigley Field.
Sounds good.
The holidays are here again, and American WaterTech wishes you and your loved ones a joyful holiday season. Our popular holiday special is back, and for a limited time only, we are offering the whole house system of a Connecticut non-electric water softener and a reverse osmosis water drinking system for the incredible discounted price of only $2,995, inclusive of basic installation and 1-year limited warranty. Hurry, this sale is on until December 29th while supplies last. See store for details or call us at 671-649-2301.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Okay, so here we are, field, the world's most beautiful ballpark, and I got to 2 more innings to throw here, and I can retire to the dugout. We still got 2 more weeks, as there were 2 more days left this week, so I think we're in pretty good shape, Jose. Okay, next on the card is Hunter versus Congress. And this is a column by one of my favorites, Jonathan Turley. And the title is, Hunter has a hearing date, but he has demands. We previously discussed how Hunter Biden was gracious enough to say he might appear before Congress after receiving a subpoena from the House Oversight Committee. And he said that he would show up when the time is right. Now let's stop and look at the word subpoena. Two Latin words, sub, under, pena, P-O-E-N-A, which a good Latin student would pronounce puena, right? But as I've mentioned before, the first thing you learn in law school is how to mispronounce Latin words. You don't go to court and ask for a writ of habeas corpus. So a subpoena means either, because if it's under penalty, either you show up or you're going to be penalized. Turley says, as I noted at the time, this is not quite how subpoenas work. It's really not an invitation. Now a date has been set for September 13, but Hunter's lawyer, Abby Lowell, is suggesting that he will not appear in private, but only in a public hearing. Again, Hunter fundamentally misses the point of a congressional subpoena. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican Kentucky, quickly abused Hunter of the point of the subpoena and said he will indeed appear in a private session before a public hearing. That's precisely what the Democrats have done, including with dozens of witnesses in the January 6th committee. Now, why would Congress want a witness to appear in private instead of a public hearing? The answer to that is the same as the answer to why are witnesses sequestered during a trial? In other words, the witness does not sit and watch the testimony of other people. The witness stays out of the courtroom until it's his turn to testify. If Hunter testifies in public, then that gives everybody and his brother the opportunity to go out and develop cover, to find people who would condition, abut, cover Hunter's testimony. So they've got to find out what Hunter's going to say. This gives Comer and the staff of that hearing the opportunity to go out and find evidence that they can use to impeach Hunter when he does testify in public. All tactics, the same kind of tactics that you might find in a trial before the court. Now, of course, congressional hearings are not trials. The object of a congressional hearing and the whole subpoena power is not to find someone guilty, not to pin the tail on that person. And if you research it, the reason that Congress has the ability to subpoena and to ask that a person who disobeys a subpoena, who perjures himself before a committee, be punished or found in contempt, is that Congress needs this power to develop the facts necessary to enact sound legislation. Now, just like medicines have off-label uses, I mentioned this the other day, Viagra was a medicine that was developed to lower blood pressure. Everybody's forgotten that now because the off-label use for Viagra, I'm not going to go into that, became so popular that people didn't care about blood pressure anymore. So using an oversight hearing to pin the tail on the witness is an off-label use of congressional hearings. And you saw with Michael San Nicolas that what it turned out to be was, in essence, a bill of attainder or a congressional indictment that was forwarded to Justice Committee. Remember that? And the House Ethics Committee said, we found substantial evidence that St. Nicholas violated the law, the lowest standard. They got their mileage out of it. St. Nicholas lost. 5 years have gone by, and you know what the Justice Department did, Jose?
Nada.
Not a thing, which was exactly what I predicted. Nothing would come of it. So, in order to lay the foundation here for the hearing of Hunter Biden, an impeachment resolution had to be adopted. Because that's the hook that Comer's committee can hang the subpoenas on. We need to develop information relative to the impeachment of the president. And of course, you don't need to be a news turkey to figure that one out, because if you're going to impeach Joe Biden, one of the charges is going to be influence peddling, borderline treason, collaborating with foreign governments through his agent, his son, etc. So if you find that Hunter Biden has done all of the things that the Republicans have accused him of, then Joe Biden's got to be impeached, because he's part and parcel of the whole thing. He is the big guy, and his whole family has been enriched by his influence peddling, as has he.
Except that seventh grandchild.
Yeah, exactly. So, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican Kentucky, quickly disabused Hunter of the point of the subpoena and said he will indeed appear in a private session. This is precisely what the Democrats have done, including the dozens of witnesses in the January 6th committee. And remember, the January 6th committee were held in private. They were videoed, and the only thing that the Congress got to see was the videos, which had been edited. Talk about a kangaroo court. Going on, this is a bad start for Hunter, who is a lawyer. Amazing that he hasn't been disbarred yet. For years, he has been able to manipulate the media and create ever-changing rationales for his role in the alleged corruption scheme, from expert to addict to victim. Yeah, he's the victim because they're out to get him, right? Those spins could now come at a cost. Well, the Justice Department slow-walked his investigation and allowed the statute of limitations to run. Any misrepresentations could be charged as a new felony with the new statute of limitations. And of course, Hunter's worst fear is that if there is a prosecutable crime that lasts beyond the next election and his dad is not reelected, he loses that quasi-immunity that he's enjoyed up until now. It's also going to knock down his side gig. What is that name of that company that'll deliver a lunch for you?
Uber Eats does it now.
Yeah, Uber Eats. Yeah, he runs something like Uber Eats at the White House. Instead of something to eat, it's cocaine. And he left some of it behind, remember? So he's probably got to go out and collect for that cocaine one of these days. Hunter will appear in place set by the committee. He can choose his answers, but not his forum. Putting the bravo of the letter aside, he now has a date with Congress, and he will no longer be able to orchestrate how he will appear in public. Now, there's a long letter from A.B. Lowe that's attached to the column. It's a little too long for Tall Tales purposes, but maybe I'll summarize it tomorrow. Okay, we've already been to Wrigley Field. So I'm going to go back and pick up on something that I saw on Facebook. I invited people to bring up things that they'd really like to know about. And Kaminsky Camacho out of Houston, you can see the post there, wanted to know about the hospital, right? And I'm going to tie this into Doug Moylan's attack on the CCU. You know, Doug Moylan is almost like Israel and Hamas. Doug Moylan has left the boundaries of his country and has said that the CCU should be abolished, that the governor should take over the power authority, that the two utilities cannot have their own special assistant attorney general. He has sent subpoenas to employees of the two utilities and the CCU, and he's just dead set that said that the CCU is inorganic, on and on and on. So Kaminsky wants to know about the hospital and where the hospital should be located. And I'll say this. This is exactly what would happen if you put the governor in charge of the utilities. I've been a champion of the CCU and the utilities from the get-go. Not someone who is carrying water for the CCU, because if they screw up, I let them have it. If they screw up in the open government law, I got 2 barrels, sir, 2 barrels on my 12 gauge, and I let them have it with both, and they learn a hard lesson, but they learned. But I've been a real champion, and I contrast what the power and water utilities were like when the governor ran them compared to what it's like now. You think load shedding is bad now. Boy, you folks that weren't around then, it's literally night and day, a well-chosen analogy. And I've complimented the Power Authority on their long-range planning. They've got a plan that goes up to 2045. They've got renewable energy. It's all there. They've laid it out very carefully, and they've not only planned it, but they're actually doing it. We've got a solar farm that contributes a lot to our load right now. And we've got solar farms and power plants in the works. And when did you ever see a situation where the CCU couldn't decide the location of any of these things they ever wanted to build, right? You got the governor with the hospital with, an absolutely critical part of our infrastructure. And she can't decide where it should be built. First, she wants to build it out on Hall Road, Route 15. A little historical tribute here, tidbit. When the Navy began to build Guam up after liberation, they entered into a contract with a joint venture from the United States, a joint venture of Brown, Pacific, and Maxon, also known as BPM. BPM's headquarters were located in Manila. They had to haul raw materials, workmen, and everything else from Manila up to Anderson for the construction of the runways, barracks, etc. The road they built a road to do that. They built a road from Manila to Anderson. That road was known as BPM Road. It was even 60 years ago. It was BPM Road, also known as Hall Road. Now we talk about the back road to Anderson, which I don't like. It just doesn't, doesn't have any pizzazz. But that's what it is. So she wanted to build out on BPM Road, out in the Tules or the boonies, right? And of course, the doctors were absolutely against it. The give the land back to the original owners were absolutely against it, that phony rap. Senators didn't, each senator probably found his own reason to oppose it. So it looked like, we're going to have to build a hospital where the old hospital was, which is really called Setfun Point, now called Hospital Point, which is what the doctors favor because the doctors' community, their clinics and their offices are in proximity to the hospital, which I think is the norm for hospitals. The hospitals that I've been into in the mainland would to a degree have a high-rise building almost on the same piece of land with private medical offices in it. So the doctors could see patients in their offices and, if necessary, make house calls at the hospital. A doctor's time is money. If you don't believe me, hire one sometime. So the less time that they've got to spend doing what's called windshield time, in other words, in a car driving from point A to point E, the more money they make, the less it costs you. So there's an awful lot of logic in the doctor's positions. There was a certain amount of logic in putting the hospital out on Hall Road, and it was close to a joint venture with the national government because they were going to add a lot to the mix. Not enough, I think, to cause the hospital to be built there, but if you're playing poker, the governor had at least a pair of trays there, right? So, but the doctors are over there sitting there with three of a kind against the governor's pair of trays. But the Hall Road thing, that's a deuce and a four and a six. And, it's 5 cards. That's it. It doesn't add up to anything. Nothing at all. It's got nothing going for it. And then the governor wants to buy it, even though it was land that was given to the government of Guam by the Navy. So the whole thing makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. The governor has all kinds of pretexts, and I'm going to go into my pretext story once again about a little boy who wanted to spend the night with Uncle Bob and Auntie Lou. The little boy was 4 years old. And Uncle Bob, and I'd always give him this punchline. What do you want to be when you grow up, little boy? I want to be just like you, Uncle Bob. That's a boy. That's a good boy. Uncle Bob, can I spend the night at your house? Sure, you can spend the night here. And we worked it out with his parents. We're watching TV, and about 8 o'clock, I said, okay, little boy, time for you to go to bed. Uncle Bob, I want to finish watching this program. All right, you can finish watching it, but then you're going to have to go to bed. Program's over. Okay, bedtime. Uncle Bob, I can't go to bed at your house. Why not? I don't have my toothbrush, so I got to go home so I can Well, we have a toothbrush for you to use, so brush your teeth and go to bed. Uncle Bob, I can't go to bed at your house. Why not? My doggie. I have to feed my doggie before I go to bed. Your mom's going to feed your doggie, Peter boy. Young man, don't worry about that. She'll feed your doggie. Uncle Bob, I can't sleep at your house. I don't have my pajamas. I mean, he went through about a half dozen of these, right? And finally, I said, young man, you're a big boy now. No more excuses. You're a big boy. Just be quiet and go to bed. Uncle Bob, I'm not a big boy. I'm just a little boy, and I miss my mommy. I want to go home. That's not quite the governor, but pretext after pretext, it requires an environmental cleanup. We gave it to the Protege Chamorro folks.
Colony of fire ants.
Colony of fire ants.
Fault line.
It's on the fault line. On and on and on and on, yeah. the altitude is too high. People will get sick from the altitude. It's good, on and on and on, pretext after pretext. None of them are as logical as what the doctors want to do. So, you got to wonder what motivates the governor. Is she playing that game called "You're not the boss of me"? In other words, I'm the governor here. I'll decide where the hospital goes. And don't think that you have the ability to tell me what to do, because I am the governor. And just like she said it so clearly after she invoked our pandemic emergency powers, remember what she said, Jose?
You have no say.
Uh-huh. Can you play that one?
Oh, we only have the other one.
Oh.
Forever!
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You have no say. In other words, if she is the governor and she makes up her mind, you have no say.
And that was directed to the medical community.
Exactly. Yeah, she could tell them how to run their clinics, take their meds away from them and give it to somebody else, regulate their hours. You have no say. Yeah. So it seems that of all of the communities on the island, or all the professions, she'd rather boss the medical around than the others. Now, once again, is that because is this a personality defect caused by her years as a nurse? Do nurses tell doctors what to do, or do doctors tell nurses what to do?
And it's, yeah, not only that, the going against the doctors was also included disparaging language and rhetoric towards them.
Yeah. Yeah, like Tom Shea should concentrate on practicing medicine and not making things better for his new clinic.
They're just trying to get rich.
Yeah, they're just trying to get rich. It's all about money. Yeah, just silly stuff. And, of course, when you poke the bear is he's gonna stand on his hind legs and start thrashing around. He's not gonna like that. And I'm mixing metaphors here. Doing that to Tom Shea is like sticking your fist in the beehive to punish the bees. It's not going to work very well.
And stirring around.
Yeah, it's just not going to work very well. So if a modicum of common sense could prevail, we'd build it on Hospital Point. And we would get somebody to decide what to do with the hulk of what's left of the current hospital. I was around in 1975 when Medical Center of the Marianas opened. Guam Memorial was already in really bad shape. In fact, I remember a case, I don't remember the name of the plaintiff. Larry Ticker was the lawyer who sued the hospital for wrongful death because a patient at the hospital had to use the toilet. He sat down on the toilet and was electrocuted because he sat down in the faulty wiring of the hospital. Can you imagine that? Filed a government claim, recover the maximum amount. It was that bad. So this is not something new with our hospital. This hospital, yeah. So Bishop Flores got it in his head that we needed a new hospital. And Bishop Flores went way out on a limb, and the Catholics built a hospital, which is what Catholics used to do before this Pope came along. Catholics built hospitals, clinics. Back in the day, the major clinic here was Catholic Medical Center down in Inigwak. When FHP came to town, they joint ventured with the church. It was FHP, Catholic Medical Center. So Bishop Flores went way out on the limb to borrow enough money to build Medical Center of the Marianas. Medical Center of the Marianas was at the time a state-of-the-art hospital. Instead of rolling over and going out of business, Guam Memorial picked the most profitable areas and competed with Medical Center of the Marianas on the most profitable areas. Now, I don't know what the most profitable areas of hospital practice are. I suspect it's renting out rooms. But that's what happened, and Medical Center of the Marianas had serious problems. So our guy in Washington, Wonpat, went to Phil Burton. Phil Burton got a $25 million grant through Congress to pull Bishop Flores's potatoes out of the fire, and that's how we got Medical Center of the Marianas, which was renamed Guam Memorial Hospital. We abandoned the old shell that was Guam Memorial Hospital, but it wasn't torn down for a long time. We used it as a place to store records and for other kind of ash and trash usage. Now, I thought at the time some use could have been used. It could have been put to some use, but it was just another government of Guam boondoggle. We got a hospital, forget about that one, right? There was a lot of usable housing up there because when Guam Memorial was built, on the Hilton side of the hospital and on the other side, some 3 and 4 bedroom concrete houses were built. Not what we thought 60 years ago were really nice houses. And two apartment buildings were built. They were called the hospital apartments. They were built for nurses. They allowed teachers to stay in the hospital apartments on a space available basis. All gone. Overcome by the boonies. All right, let's head for Churchill Downs.
Santa's coming and things are looking up. Bank Pacific has rolled out Rudolph's favorite, My Christmas Loan, with the annual percentage rate as low as 7.49% and up to $50,000. And with our Bank Pacific contactless Visa debit card, you have the flexibility of using your money when you want, where you want. My Christmas Loan, contactless Visa debit card. Let's make Christmas season merrier in 23. Equal opportunity lender, credit conditions apply. Merry Christmas from Bank Pacific.
Hafa-day, Alex Dimapon here from Security Title. Title reports, escrow forms, signatures, statements, and title insurance. When it comes to buying, selling, or refinancing your property, we do it all for you. At Security Title, we enjoy watching your dreams come true and being the ones to make sure it happens just as you planned. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Churchill Downs in Louisville, 6 furlongs. I cross the finish line and wrap up another day of Tall Tales. I'll miss you all, but we'll be back at 1600 tomorrow afternoon with more Tall Tales, enjoying every single minute of it, just like you all do. Okay, so back to the Medical Center of the Marianas. We saw some magic in action here because the Medical Center of the Marianas in 1975 was probably a state-of-the-art hospital. And as if by magic, in 48 years, we were able to turn that state-of-the-art hospital into something just as junky as it replaced. How do we do that, Jose? Did someone wave a magic wand? Or did we just decide, well, it's brand new, no sense worrying about maintenance because it's brand new? And that's exactly what happened. Now we probably have the only hospital under the American flag that has waterfalls in the interior. And I'm not talking about a decoration in the atrium. I'm talking about holes in the roof. It has its own interior garden, but instead of growing nutritious veggies, we're growing mold, as though this were some kind of harvestable crop.
Penicillin.
Yeah, we make our own penicillin. Yeah, and we've heard enough about, the whole OBGYN capability. It's a wonder that our natality rate isn't higher than what it is. And fortunately, the private sector came along and built a real hospital for us. So the lucky ones amongst us have a choice. You can go to GRMC instead of GMH. If you're going to be in a car accident, try to have it Dadido or north. Anything Tamuning south, you have a really good chance of winding up at GMH. So if you got to have a car accident, do it up north. Or from Anigua south, maybe you'll wind up at Naval Hospital. But the last thing you want is to go from your car accident to GMH, because they may not have the meds that you need for a recovery. That's a long answer to a short question, Kavinsky Camacho, but I hope I covered the bases for you. Okay, I've got about 5 minutes to go. We got phone problems again today, Jose?
It's off and on.
Yeah.
Call back, caller.
Okay, well, rather than start another topic, because I don't have another topic to start, I'm going to just check out Facebook and see who's there, unless this call actually lands. Looks like it landed. Kofa Joe. Tell me about it, Kofa Joe.
Hey, Bob.
A little louder, please.
I apologize. So in the hospital, right, there's a budget. The government has a budget, and the lion's share of the budget seems to go towards education. So how do you feel about the idea of going through the Department of Education, or whatever it's called now, and looking for all the woke agenda, spending, if there's such a thing, and to the grade school and possibly into the university, and start cutting those fundings, if it's possible, where the source of funding is, and directing that budget, so those monies rather, over to the Guadalajara Hospital. Does it sound like a workable idea? Or what do you think about it?
Well, I hear what you're saying, Joe, but we have a First Amendment here that we have to be very careful of. And I'm going to use an example here. Florida. Governor DeSantis in Florida. What's his first name again, Jose?
Ron?
Yeah. Ron DeSantis in Florida, who has done a lot of good things, and he turned a blue state bright red. He won by 20 points, and he's done a lot of really good stuff. But when he came out with when he was able to get his legislature to enact a bill that stopped the woke stuff in the first 3 grades, he was criticized because they named it the Don't Say Gay bill, which it wasn't. And the Disney World folks took after him. And what he did was he took the Disney folks on, and he abolished their special rent-seeking operation called Brushy Creek. He got the legislature to do away with Brushy Creek. Cost them big money. Turned out a little different, but that was what he did. And what he did is what I condemn all the time. He used the government's back scratcher to scratch his own back. In other words, he used his power as the governor to silence people who were saying stuff that he didn't like the sound of. Now, he was right, and Disneyland was wrong, but heavy-handed governments that use their ability to censor people or cancel people, that's a whole nother ballgame. And there are ways of going about that without doing that. The farther up you get the food chain, the more abhorrent it is. I would tolerate wokesters at the university before I'd get the legislature involved in the curriculum. Good question, another, Joe, but I got to go and say goodbye to our president.
Okay, thanks for goodbye. Take care.
Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
U.S. Osprey down. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. A U.S. military Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft has crashed into the sea off the coast of Yakushima Island off the southern tip of Japan. Japanese officials say the wreckage has been found, as well as one person. Their condition and the fate of the other 7 crew members on board at the time of the crash not known yet. 3 U.S. Marines died in August in an Osprey crash in Australia. Barring an extension, today could be the last of what is stretched into a 6-day ceasefire in Gaza. Another group of hostages is scheduled to be released today. 10 Israelis and 2 foreign nationals were freed yesterday, despite an apparent breach in the ceasefire agreement.
Israel and Hamas accusing each other of violating the temporary ceasefire agreement. 3 explosions in the northern Gaza Strip injured several Israeli soldiers and led to a gunfight with Hamas, the first exchange of fire in 5 days.
Fox's Nate Foy in Israel. Talks are underway in Qatar aimed at extending the ceasefire with a larger hostage release. Former First Lady Rosalind Carter remembered in a memorial service in Atlanta yesterday, her daughter Amy among the eulogists.
My mom spent most of her life in love with my dad. Their partnership and love story was a defining feature of her life.
Her husband, former President Jimmy Carter, now 99 and in home hospice care, attended as well. Mrs. Carter died last week at the age of 96. There will not be a strike by American Airlines flight attendants before the end of the year.
Federal mediators have rejected a union's request that could have led to a year-end strike by American Airlines flight attendants. The National Mediation Board instead directed the airline and the Association of Professional Flight Attendants to continue negotiating for a new contract. Flight attendants voted to authorize a strike and picketed outside American's headquarters, noting they have not received raises since 2019.
America's listening to Fox News.
I'm Dana Perino, co-host of The Five and co-anchor of America's Newsroom. Join me for my brand new podcast, Perino on Politics. Listeners of Everything Will Be Okay will gravitate toward this podcast too. Every Monday, I'm going to talk to people I trust in politics as they tell me what they're seeing and thinking in the 2024 election cycle. As they prep me to cover the upcoming election, they'll prep you, the voters, too. Make sure you subscribe to this series on FoxNewsPodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts and leave a rating and review.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey there, it's me, Kennedy. Make sure to check out my podcast, Kennedy Saves the World. It is 5 days a week. Every week, we check in with Jimmy Fallon, bring in authors for the book club, and even treat some of your favorite Fox personalities to a very special happy hour. Download and listen at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Kennedy Saves the World. America's listening to Fox News.
Hundreds of thousands of student loan borrowers are receiving an early holiday gift.
An email from the president is hitting the inboxes of more than 800,000 student loan borrowers, telling them their loans are forgiven because of actions taken by the administration. A plan to wipe away student debt for millions of Americans was struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court, but the administration has implemented more targeted programs. The message from President Biden says he hopes the relief gives borrowers a little bit more breathing room and invites recipients to share their stories about the impact of student debt forgiveness. The president is trying to highlight progress to reduce costs as polling continues to show his approval dragging on his handling of the economy and inflation. At the White House, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
The first transatlantic flight by a commercial jet powered solely by so-called sustainable aviation fuel has flown from London to New York. The Virgin Atlantic flight aimed to achieve what supporters call Jet Zero to make air travel more environmentally friendly. While governments have long talked about decarbonizing air travel, the transition has been very slow. Sustainable aviation fuel reduces greenhouse gas emissions by about 70%, but it's hard to come by. A salad restaurant chain in New York State has been sued over something a customer says she found in her salad.
Finger food is not on the menu at Chopped Creative Salad Company, but a woman says that's what she was served at a store location in Kisco, New York, literally. Allison Kazi claims she found part of a finger mixed in with her arugula. She filed a lawsuit alleging a manager at the restaurant accidentally severed an index finger while chopping greens, and a piece of it made its way into the salads. Westchester County Health Department records show Chopped was recently fined $900. Tom Graham, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
The secret to finding joy this season is sharing my delicious KFC chicken with everyone. Introducing KFC's new holiday bundle of joy. That's a bucket of my KFC chicken, 2 large sides, 8 pieces of my new chicken nuggets, and 4 biscuits. Every bundle of joy comes with a free KFC umbrella, and KFC will donate $1 to the Guam Harvest House. It's the season of sharing with KFC's holiday bundle of joy. It's finger-licking good.
What is dedication? The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day-Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job. That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
I want to thank him. He's been one hell of a governor, man. Matter of fact, he could do anything you want. He could have the job I'm looking for.
And over the past 2 years alone, we've seized enough fentanyl to kill 270 million Americans.
Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
Yeah, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America. Roundup and information overload.
All right, News Roundup, Information Overload Hour. 800-941-SEAN is our number if you want to be a part of the program. Just to remind you, look at the big lie that our media took as it relates to Israel in their ongoing defense of their country and fight for their very survival. The big lie that Hamas propaganda put out that, Israel just bombed a hospital and killed over 500 doctors and nurses and children. Well, it turns out that all of it was nothing but a big fat lie. And that, in fact, the people that fired the weapon that didn't even hit the hospital, but the parking lot next to the hospital, was the Islamic Jihad. But, it didn't stop the media from lying and wanting to believe the worst. And this has been the MO of this terror organization for many, many decades. That's why they fire their missiles, their rockets from schools. That's why they use hospitals. That's why they have human shields. That's why they take hostages. That's why they have a tunnel, a network of terror tunnels. I've been in them. I've shown them on TV. You've seen me in them. That's why they put their command headquarters in a tunnel underneath the biggest hospital in Gaza, where they keep their military equipment and other munitions, etc. Well, now the issue is, what is the Senate going to do in terms of helping Israel, our number one ally in the Middle East, as they now fight for their survival? Now, also on top of that, we've had over 75 attacks on U.S. installations and soldiers, throughout the region. And Joe Biden's answer has been, 2 little pinpricks, a missile here, missile there to empty warehouses. He hasn't responded. Now the issue is going before Congress, and what Chuck Schumer in the Senate is trying to do is, now he's threatening to keep members over the holidays unless they pass this $106 billion Ukraine Israel package that may include some border security. Now, remember, Ukraine has gotten, close to $80 billion of tax dollars up till now. And now they're looking for another $80 billion. But for Israel, they're offering they're talking about $14 billion. And then yesterday, on a separate vote, they voted against aid for Israel, which makes no sense at all whatsoever. And, at some point, when is the U.S. government going to help our best ally in the region? Anyway, let's say hi to Senator Dr. Roger Marshall of Kansas and Senator Tommy Tuberville, Coach Tuberville of Alabama. Welcome, both of you. By the way, Coach, you got to admit that was one hell of a game and a finish at the Alabama-Auburn game.
Come on, Sean. Don't bring that up. I'm trying to get over that. I was there. What a game it was. Kid made a throw at the end, and, great teams make big plays, and they made it.
Well, you got to say this. I think Nick Saban is by far the single best college football coach right up there with Bear Bryant. You both come from Alabama, right? So I'm right up there with you, I guess, too.
Well, he's done an unbelievable job winning all those championships. And the big thing about coaching, it's anything, Sean, it's consistency. And he's been consistent for, 13 years there at Alabama. So, yeah, he's done a heck of a job. Good friend. And I tell him all the time, he has done something that's almost impossible.
He really has. Well, it was. I thought the Michigan-Ohio State game, I didn't think he could beat that. But, on comes the Alabama-Auburn game, and it was wild. Anyway, let me get to the issue at hand here. And Dr. Marshall, let me start with you. And I think this is important. Why are we waiting so long to help our ally that's